Commander Baxlor of the 7th Fleet Subjugation Force shifted his weight from one tentacled appendage to another, a gesture his species performed when particularly amused. And, oh, was he ever amused? The creature standing before him, this human, as they called themselves, was supposedly from a death world. Ah, what a joke! So this is the dangerous species? Baxlor's voice oscillated through 3 different tonal registers, the hegemony equivalent of sarcastic laughter. The terrifying Deathworlders? Really? This soft, fleshy thing barely reaches my lower sensory nodes. The human designation Ellie Parker, according to the translation matrix, stood silently in the containment field. She had none of the obvious defensive adaptations that mark true warrior species: no exoskeleton, no toxin glands, no additional limbs for combat. Just 2 arms, 2 legs, and a remarkably unprotected head housing an apparently overtaxed brain. You know what's the funniest thing about humans? Baxlor turned to his lieutenant, not bothering to lower his voice. They think gravity is heavy on their planet. Can you believe that? They're measly 9.8 meters per second squared? My vacation home on Dravix has 15, and they call Earth a death world. Hey! The bridge crew chittered appropriately at their commander's wit. Good. Morale was important before a conquest. The Supreme Council wants us to take precautions with this one, his second-in-command Trell noted, glancing nervously at the specimen. Baxlor waved 3 of his limbs dismissively. Look at her. 5 digits per manipulator? Completely inefficient. No natural weapons. She's wearing artificial coverings just to survive minimal temperature variations. Pathetic. Ellie Parker's eyes, only 2 of them. Another limitation, tracked Baxlor's movements with unnerving focus. Most species cowered when first encountering the hegemony's might. This one just watched. The scans indicate they have nuclear capabilities but haven't even achieved proper faster-than-light travel. Baxlor continued, was checking the holographic readout hovering above his command console. Another primitive species that needs the guiding tentacle of the hegemony. Supreme Warlord Kraz'tek will be so bored by this conquest he might not even bother attending the subjugation ceremony. The containment field hummed steadily. Their prisoner hadn't attempted to escape, hadn't pleaded for mercy, hadn't done much of anything since her capture during the first contact mission. Their intelligence indicated she wasn't even a warrior, just some kind of engineering student who happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Perfect leverage. Prepare the communication array, Baxlor commanded, his primary eyes still fixed on the human. I want to broadcast this specimen to their world leaders. Let's give them a taste of what happens when you resist the inevitable. Once they see how easily we've contained one of their kind, they'll surrender their resources without all that tedious fighting. Ellie Parker's lips curved slightly upward. On her world, they called this expression a smile. Baxlor didn't recognize the warning sign for what it was. The grand throne room of the hegemony flagship Inevitable Dominance practically screamed superiority with every design choice. Ceilings that stretched 30 meters high. Walls constructed from metals mined from neutron star remnants. Gravity generators that could be adjusted to crush most species into paste with the twist of a dial. All completely necessary, according to the hegemony's intimidation protocols. Supreme Warlord Kraz'tek, I present the human specimen as requested, Baxlor announced, his voice echoing across the cavernous chamber as he guided the containment field forward. The field hummed along, floating Ellie Parker a respectable half-meter above the polished floor, another psychological tactic to remind captives of their powerlessness. Supreme Warlord Kraz'tek unfolded from his command throne, extending to his full 4-meter height. Unlike Baxlor's species with their tentacled lower half, Kraz'tek's people had evolved from apex predators on a high-gravity world. 6 muscular legs supported a torso covered in naturally occurring armor plates that could withstand direct energy weapon impacts. 4 primary arms ended in razor-sharp claws that could, according to hegemony propaganda, disembowel a battle tank. So small, Kraz'tek remarked, his voice a rumbling bass that vibrated the floor plates. Are you certain this is an adult specimen, Commander? Yes, Supreme Warlord. Our science officer Plix has confirmed it. At the mention of his name, Science Officer Plix scuttled forward. Where Baxlor and Kraz'tek were built for intimidation, Plix's species specialized in information processing. His translucent cranium pulsed with biochemical calculations, the visible neural network flashing with data retrieval. Indeed, Supreme Warlord Plix's voice whistled through specialized speech organs. This human female is approximately 22 solar cycles old by their measurement, fully mature by their standards. Though I must say, their neurological structure is unusual. Their synaptic pathways show high plasticity, even in adulthood. Meaning? Kraz'tek demanded. They adapt quickly, sir. Hey! Security Chief Drav barked from his position near the door, where his quadruple-jointed limbs remained in constant motion, checking and rechecking security protocols. What good is adaptation when your body is so fragile? Our preliminary tests show their skin ruptures under minimal pressure. No acid resistance, no radiation immunity. They require constant hydration and caloric intake. The Supreme Warlord circled the containment field, studying Ellie Parker from all angles. Her eyes followed his movement, calmly tracking each step. She hadn't spoken since they'd brought her aboard, not a single word. Do you comprehend the situation you are in, human? Kraz'tek finally asked, bringing his fearsome face close to the energy barrier. Do you understand that your entire species now stands at the precipice of subjugation? That your continued existence depends entirely on my goodwill? Ellie Parker blinked. Once, twice, then gave a small nod. Excellent. At least it comprehends basic communication. Kraz'tek's mandibles clicked together in what passed for amusement among his kind. The hegemony has conquered 342 species across 27 galaxies. Some fought, some surrendered. All serve now. Baxlor noticed something odd about the human's attention. While Kraz'tek spoke, her eyes weren't fixed on his fearsome visage but rather on the structural supports of the throne room. On the control panels? On the weaponry carried by the guards? Your species will provide us with your planet's resources. Kraz'tek continued his well-rehearsed speech. Your people will mine your own world for our benefit. You will surrender all technological advancements, primitive as they are, to our control. Resistance is. She's cataloging our weaknesses, Plix suddenly interrupted, his cranial fluid pulsing rapidly. The eye movements, the minimal micro-expressions, she's analyzing us. Drav immediately raised his shock staff. Should I terminate the specimen, Supreme Warlord? Don't be ridiculous, Kraz'tek waved a dismissive claw. What could this soft creature possibly do? Look at her, she's trembling. Indeed, Ellie Parker's body displayed small vibrations. What the hegemony leaders failed to recognize was the difference between fear and barely contained laughter. The silence is a fear response, Baxlor assured everyone, misreading everything about the situation. Typical prey behavior when confronted by superior predators. They freeze before accepting their inevitable fate. Science Officer Plix wasn't convinced. His species had evolved to detect patterns, and something about this human's behavior pattern wasn't matching their extensive database of conquered species. Supreme Warlord, perhaps we should increase security measures until... Enough. Kraz'tek's patience had limits. I have conquered worlds that would make this human's nightmares seem like paradise. It's time to show her exactly why the hegemony rules the stars. Kraz'tek raised one massive primary arm, his clawed digits spreading in a dramatic gesture that had been perfected over centuries of conquest ceremonies. The chamber's lighting automatically dimmed a programmed response to the Supreme Warlord's specific bioelectric signature, and a spotlight illuminated the massive display case that descended from the ceiling. Behold, human, Kraz'tek's voice dropped to a reverent tone that still somehow managed to fill the entire chamber. The Sundering Blade. The case opened with a theatrical hiss of escaping gas, totally unnecessary, but very impressive according to the Hegemony Intimidation Manual Appendix C, paragraph 47. Within the case, suspended in a gravitational null field, floated a weapon that seemed to both absorb and emit light simultaneously. Baxlor felt his primary heart swell with pride. He'd witnessed this ceremony 16 times, and it never failed to impress. The human would surely break her stubborn silence now. 37 species have surrendered their worlds at the mere sight of this weapon, Kraz'tek continued, carefully lifting the blade from its containment field. The weapon looked almost comically large in proportion to the human, a full 2 meters of gleaming metal with an edge so fine it was technically only a few molecules wide. The blade was forged in the heart of a dying star, tempered in the blood of the legendary Vorn beasts of Sector 9, and has absorbed the essence of every world it has helped conquer. Science Officer Plix activated a holographic display showing spectral analyses of the blade's composition. The molecular structure is unlike anything your species has ever encountered. Our metallurgy is approximately 8,742 years ahead of your most advanced Earth technologies. In demonstration time, Kraz'tek announced with almost childlike glee. At a signal from the Supreme Warlord, several drones brought forward a series of materials. With theatrical flourishes, Kraz'tek had always had a flair for the dramatic. He sliced through each one. A block of tungsten carbide composite, wing, cleaved perfectly in half. A slab of ship hull armor, screech, parted like butter. A container of super-compressed neutronium. Whoosh! Separated so precisely that the two halves remained standing side by side. The most advanced materials your world can produce would offer no more resistance than the atmosphere you breathe, Kraz'tek boasted, swinging the blade in complex patterns that created harmonic overtones in the air. With this single weapon I could carve your planet into manageable mining sectors without breaking a sweat. Do your kind even produce sweat? Doesn't matter. Throughout the display, Baxlor kept all 4 of his eyes on the human. Surely now she would tremble, plead, beg for mercy on behalf of her pathetic species. Instead, Ellie Parker watched with that same unnervingly steady gaze, her eyes tracking the blade's movements with what appeared to be professional interest. Does your silence indicate acceptance of your inferiority? Kraz'tek brought the blade to rest, its tip hovering just outside the containment field near Ellie's face. Or perhaps your primitive mind cannot comprehend the magnificence of what you're witnessing? Speak, human. Admit the weakness of your species before the might of the hegemony. For exactly 13 seconds Baxlor counted using his internal chronometer. Ellie Parker said nothing. Her eyes moved methodically over the blade's surface, her pupils dilating slightly as she appeared to be making some sort of mental calculations. Oh, this is precious, Baxlor thought to himself. Look at the frail creature trying to process what she's seeing, probably wondering if she's having some sort of hallucination. These humans, with their inadequate sensory organs and laughable excuse for a central nervous system. She'll probably faint from the mere concept of our advanced technology. I bet she can't even conceptualize metallurgy beyond whatever primitive metals they've managed to dig out of their backwater planet. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Even Kraz'tek, accustomed to immediate capitulation, began to look slightly uncertain. Well? The Supreme Warlord finally demanded. Have you nothing to say, human? And that's when Ellie Parker finally spoke. May I hold it? May I hold it? The question hung in the air like an undetonated plasma charge. For a moment, just a brief, beautiful moment, the entire command chamber of the most feared warship in 17 galaxies fell completely silent. Then, like a supernova reaching critical mass, laughter erupted. The kind of laughter that ripples through multiple appendages and threatens to rupture breathing apparatus. Kraz'tek's massive frame shook with it. Baxlor's tentacles writhed in mirth. Even the typically stoic security chief Drev emitted the high-pitched wheezing sounds his species made when thoroughly amused. She wants to hold it. Baxlor could barely get the words out. The puny human wants to hold the Sundering Blade. Oh, this is priceless. Absolutely worthy of inclusion in the Hegemony Museum of Conquered Species Follies. Even Science Officer Plix, who had been cautious about the human, joined in with his species' bubble-popping chuckles. Perhaps she thinks it's a ceremonial object. Their species has a strange fixation with antiquities. Their metals technology barely extends beyond simple alloys. Kraz'tek wiped at his primary eyes with one of his secondary limbs. You know what? Why not? In 13 millennia of conquest, no species has ever made such an amusing request. Computer lower containment field. Supreme Warlord Kraz'tek interjected, his laughter instantly replaced with concern. Security protocols dictate. Override. Authorization Kraz'tek Alpha Subjugate Prime, the Supreme Warlord declared. What harm could possibly come from allowing this soft creature a moment of contact with true power before her world falls? The containment field shimmered and dissolved. For the first time since her capture, Ellie Parker stood freely on the deck of the Hegemony flagship. To everyone's surprise, she didn't attempt to run, attack, or cower. Instead, she stepped forward with casual confidence, as though she was approaching a colleague's desk rather than the galaxy's most feared conqueror. Thanks, she said, extending her hands. Nice balance on this thing. Titanium carbide composite with quantum-stabilized edge? Kraz'tek blinked all four of his eyes in succession, the equivalent of a shocked double-take in his species. You recognize the composition? Close, but not quite. Plix corrected automatically, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his caution. It's actually a rare post-transition metal matrix with neutronium-infused superalloy core with a monomolecular cutting edge maintained by a low-level quantum field generator in the hilt. Ellie interrupted, running her finger carefully along the flat of the blade. We have something similar in our lab back on Earth, though yours is definitely prettier. The engravings are a nice touch. Ceremonial? The command chamber again fell silent, but this time with bewilderment rather than amusement. How could you possibly know that? Plix demanded, his transparent cranium pulsing with rapid calculations. Your species' technological development index doesn't include. I'm an engineering student, specializing in experimental metallurgy. Ellie shrugged, testing the blade's weight by moving it from hand to hand. We've been working with neutronium alloys for about 15 years now, ever since the Ganymede incident. Though I've got to say, your quantum field stabilizer is much more elegant than ours. We still use bulky containment units. Baxlor's amusement evaporated faster than liquid nitrogen in a plasma furnace. The intelligence briefing said nothing about humans having neutronium technology. Plix. Explain this discrepancy. I don't understand, the science officer stammered, his cranial fluid nearly boiling with agitation. Our scans of their planet showed no evidence of. You probably scanned our public facilities, Ellie commented casually, still examining the blade. The advanced labs are underground. Radiation shielding and all that. Hey, this balance is actually a bit off. The quantum field is stronger toward the hilt than the tip. Creates unnecessary torque when swinging. Did you know that? Impossible. Kraz'tek roared, his legendary composure cracking for the first time in 7 centuries of conquest. That weapon was crafted by the 17 greatest metallurgists in the hegemony. It is perfect. Well, not to be rude, but Ellie's face scrunched up in what humans called an apologetic expression. The molecular alignment is inconsistent. See this discoloration along the midpoint? Classic stress indicator. You guys got the quantum field running perpendicular to the neutronium flow. Should be parallel for optimal stability. Enough of this absurdity. Kraz'tek bellowed, reaching for the blade. No primitive death worlder could possibly understand the complexities of. What happened next occurred so quickly that even the ship's high-speed security recordings would need to be slowed to 1,000th normal speed for proper analysis. With a casual twisting motion that looked almost lazy, Ellie Parker snapped the legendary Sundering Blade in half. Crack. The sound echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. The broken ends of the blade sparked with quantum energy, its containment field collapsing in a shower of subatomic particles. Kraz'tek stared at the broken pieces, his mandibles hanging open in an expression that hadn't been seen on his face since he was a newly hatched larva. Oops, Ellie said with a small smile. Guess I don't know my own strength. What, how impossible? Baxlor sputtered, his tentacles twisting in knots of confusion. Ellie shrugged those inadequate shoulders that had seemed so unimpressive mere moments ago. Earth gravity. 9.8 meters per second squared, remember? You called it measly. But we evolved there. Our bones have roughly 4 times the density of yours. Our muscles are correspondingly stronger to move those dense bones around. What you call a death world, we call home. Security breach. Containment failure. Unknown weaponry detected. The ship's automated systems finally caught up with events, alarm klaxons blaring throughout the command chamber as emergency force fields began to deploy. Oh, and FYI, Ellie added, hefting the 2 pieces of the broken blade with disturbing ease, I wasn't captured during first contact. I let myself be taken. Chaos erupted faster than a quantum singularity collapse. Security Chief Draev was the first to react, leaping toward Ellie with all 4 combat limbs extended, shock staff crackling with enough energy to stun a Draxian behemoth. Too slow. Far, far too slow. For Baxlor, the next few moments registered as a series of impossible images, like watching a malfunctioning holographic projection. The small, fragile, supposedly inferior human moved with a fluidity that made the hegemony's most elite warriors look like they were swimming in liquid titanium. Ellie ducked under Drav's attack, her movements economical and precise. She jammed one broken piece of the Sundering Blade into the security console to her right, causing a cascade of sparks and a localized electromagnetic pulse that disabled the nearest security force fields. Stop her. Kraz'tek roared, but his legendary authority meant nothing now. His guards rushed forward in a coordinated attack pattern that had subjugated entire planetary defense forces. The humans slipped between them as though they were standing still. Is this really your best? Ellie called out, almost conversationally as she vaulted over a guard and used the second blade fragment to slice through a primary power conduit. I was told the hegemony was the greatest military force in the known universe. My grandma moves faster during her morning yoga, and she's 92. Baxlor reached for his emergency communicator. All ships. Battle stations. The human prisoner is... The communicator crackled to life before he could finish, but it wasn't responding to his command. Instead, an unfamiliar voice spoke through it another human. Hegemony flagship Inevitable Dominance. This is Admiral Helena Torres of the Earth Defense Fleet Righteous Indignation. We have your vessel surrounded. Your shields have been compromised. Your weapons systems are offline. Please advise your Supreme Warlord that resistance is futile, though I've always wanted to say that to someone else. What? Baxlor's tentacles went limp with shock. Impossible. Earth has no fleet. No FTL capability. The intelligence reports. We're about 3 days out of date, Ellie finished for him, casually leaning against the Supreme Warlord's throne like she was at some human recreational gathering. We got your FTL tech working approximately 47 hours after your scout ship landed. Your cloaking technology took a bit longer, almost a full day. Sorry about that. Our quantum physicists had a heated debate about the mathematical models. And on the massive view screen that dominated the far wall of the command chamber, space itself seemed to ripple and distort. Where empty void had been moments before, 12 sleek vessels now appeared, their designs clearly influenced by hegemony technology but with modifications that Baxlor's tactical systems identified as improvements. She's lying, Science Officer Plix shrieked, his transparent cranium now a chaotic storm of neural activity. No species could reverse engineer our technology so quickly. It's taken the hegemony centuries to. Yeah, about that, Ellie interrupted, tossing a fragment of the broken blade from hand to hand. Turns out when your entire species evolves on a high-gravity death trap of a planet, you either get really good at figuring things out quickly or you don't survive. Natural selection at its finest. We had 7-year-olds playing with your advanced communication devices by day 2. Around the command chamber, hegemony officers were abandoning their posts, some diving for emergency escape pods, others simply cowering behind equipment. Several began rapid-fire negotiations with their personal deities. Our ship design team would like to thank you for the inspiration, by the way, Ellie continued, pointing at the vessels on the view screen. Though we did fix that embarrassing power coupling issue in your engine core. You know, the one that makes your ships vulnerable to a simple tachyon pulse? That was just sloppy engineering. Supreme Warlord Kraz'tek, conqueror of 342 species, terror of 27 galaxies, had gone completely still, his fearsome battle mandibles hanging slack. But our intelligence said you were primitive. Baxlor protested, his voice rising to a pitch that would have been embarrassing under any other circumstances. Your world is divided into competing factions. You fight among yourselves. You haven't even unified your planetary government. Ellie laughed, actually laughed, as she casually tossed the broken blade pieces onto the Supreme Warlord's throne. Oh, that. Yeah, we do argue a lot. It's kind of our thing. But here's a free tip for your next invasion attempt, though I wouldn't recommend it. Nothing unifies humans faster than an external threat. The moment your scout ship landed, every nation on Earth pooled resources. We had a unified planetary defense force by dinner time. The treaty was signed over pizza. From the communicator, Admiral Torres's voice came through again. Ellie, status report? Mission accomplished, Admiral, Ellie replied cheerfully. The Hegemony flagship is secured. You were right, their overconfidence made this almost too easy. Should I bring back souvenirs? The Supreme Warlord has this fancy throne that would look great in your office. The docking procedures of Earth vessels were, to Baxlor's professional dismay, irritatingly efficient. No grandiose boarding tubes with intimidation lighting. No ritualistic exchange of threats. Not even a proper decontamination period. Just a series of metallic clanks as magnetic seals engaged, followed by the hiss of atmosphere equalizing, and suddenly the command deck was swarming with humans in sleek, functional uniforms. Permission to come aboard? Admiral Torres asked with a grin that suggested she didn't care one bit about permission. She was already striding across the command deck, an older human female with silver hair and posture that somehow managed to convey more authority than Kraz'tek's 4-meter frame ever had. I formally surrender the Hegemony flagship inevitable dominance to Earth forces, Baxlor found himself saying. His tentacles moved in the formal pattern of capitulation, a gesture he'd only ever practiced from the receiving end. His ancestors were probably spinning in their ceremonial dissolution tanks. A team of human engineers immediately dispersed throughout the bridge, interfacing their devices with Hegemony systems with disturbing familiarity. They weren't even consulting manuals. Some were making modifications on the spot, chatting casually about efficiency improvements and design flaws. In the center of the command deck, Supreme Warlord Kraz'tek remained frozen in what Baxlor recognized as the most severe form of humiliation shock. 342 consecutive victories, ended by a single human who hadn't even broken a sweat. The Warlord's cultural recovery options were limited: ritual suicide, permanent exile, or most dishonorably writing a self-critical memoir titled How I Failed the Hegemony. So, Admiral Torres said, examining the broken pieces of the Sundering Blade with professional interest, this is the legendary weapon that conquered 37 species? Looks like it could have used a better quality control process. The quantum alignment was off, Ellie explained, now leaning casually against a navigation console. Classic manufacturing error. Their theoretical models are actually pretty solid, but their execution needs work. Baxlor's scientific curiosity momentarily overrode his shame. How did you know? No other species has ever detected the flaw. I wrote my thesis on quantum-aligned metallurgy, Ellie shrugged. I was presenting it at MIT when your scout ship landed. My professors are going to be so mad they missed this field test. Though I guess I can add saved planet from alien invasion as a footnote. You're just a student? Kraz'tek finally spoke, his voice a shadow of its former intimidating rumble. Not even a warrior. Engineering student, Ellie corrected. 3rd year. Though I did take a self-defense class last semester. Came in handy today, I guess? Admiral Torres smiled at Baxlor and Kraz'tek. Now, gentlemen, you are male-gendered, correct? Hard to tell with the tentacles and mandibles. Let's discuss terms. Earth is prepared to be quite generous, all things considered. We're interested in peaceful cultural exchange, technological cooperation, and, of course, immediate cessation of all hegemony conquest activities. You expect the hegemony to just stop conquering? Baxlor was aghast. That's our entire economic model, our cultural identity, our purpose. Time for a new hobby, Torres suggested cheerfully. Have you considered gardening? Very therapeutic. As the Admiral outlined terms that would fundamentally restructure the galactic balance of power, Baxlor found himself staring at the broken pieces of the Sundering Blade, the ultimate symbol of hegemony dominance. Casually snapped by a college student who considered the encounter a mild inconvenience in her academic schedule. Well, Ellie said, noticing his gaze, if it makes you feel any better, we'll probably help you build a better one. Humans are funny that way. We love fixing things, especially things that were previously used to threaten us. Later, as the human delegation escorted the hegemony leadership to the conference room to formalize surrender terms, Baxlor overheard two human engineers discussing modifications to the flagship's propulsion system. Should we tell them about the design improvements we've already uploaded to their mainframe? One asked. Nah, said the other. Let it be a surprise. Besides, they'll find out soon enough when their ships start running 40% more efficiently. And that, Baxlor realized with a sinking feeling in all four of his cardiac chambers, was perhaps the most terrifying thing about humans. They didn't just defeat you, they improved you, whether you wanted it or not. The galaxy would never be the same. And based on the gleam in Ellie Parker's eyes as she casually explained quantum physics to the Supreme Warlord of the hegemony, it might actually be better for it. Ancestors help us all.